Good morning. Dom Palayo checking in with you guys. It's Sunday, August 31st, last day of August, 2025, and I am here getting ready to go over to my parents' house this morning. I always get up early on Sunday mornings and drive over here to where my parents live, and got over here. It's like 7 a.m., so I'm not gonna drop in that early, but I usually get to their house 7:30, 8 o'clock. So I was talking to one of my friends this morning who is convinced that we need to become a socialist country. She says, capitalism has failed, and that the way to go is socialism. That will fix all of our problems. And I'm just, you know, people forget that Europe is a capitalist continent. All of the countries in Europe, for the most part, are capitalist countries. They just have a few additional programs that are funded by the government. They don't pay as much for military as we do, so they use their money to pay for universal health care and more funding toward education and that sort of thing in Europe. And that's great. I'm not completely opposed to the idea. The downside I see to universal health care, living here in the United States, there's a couple of problems. Problem number one: can you imagine what our emergency rooms would look like here in the United States if people didn't have to pay anything to go and use it? I know how that would go here in the United States. People are going to show up with just the slightest sniffle, any slight little symptom. They're going to be showing up at the emergency room wanting to be seen. It's like part of the reason that we have like co-pays and deductibles and that sort of thing is so that people don't use it unless they really need it. That's one of the reasons why that exists. Second is the medical people in Europe don't make the kind of money the medical people here in the United States make. It's just the truth. Salaries for doctors are just a lot higher here in the United States. People want to point at the insurance companies and act like it's the insurance companies that are the reason why our healthcare costs are what they are, and that's not true. It's just the cost of healthcare. I used to work 20 years ago. I worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield here in North Carolina, and I saw the medical bills that were coming in, and I mean, it's insane. It's crazy. I had gastric bypass surgery last year, and I was in the operating room for maybe a couple of hours, 2 or 3 hours, having that surgery done. And I stayed in the hospital overnight. It was almost $100,000. $100,000. Now, fortunately, I had insurance that covered almost, I did meet my out-of-pocket maximum last year. I think I had to come out of pocket $2,000. So the insurance picks up the rest of that. Now they do make agreements with the medical providers and stuff to try to, to make deals, but the insurance company paid the majority of that. So the reason our, healthcare is so expensive, it's not the insurance companies, not really. Sure, there is an added cost there, but truthfully, the bulk of the expense is just the cost of healthcare. And if you have universal healthcare, the government becomes more powerful and can better dictate prices of procedures. Now, what's going to wind up happening, and this is what's happened pretty much in Europe, is you get a decent basic quality of care. But when it comes to health conditions that are not as common, I remember I lived in Spain when I was younger, and you would see posters or people posting up papers trying to raise money to send children to the United States because they had some sort of health condition that they just don't treat in Europe. They don't have the resources to address some of these more rare conditions. Here in the United States, we do. And so they would raise money to send kids to the United States to be seen for these. Even in Europe, in Western Europe, this exists. Now, if they had, I'm sure it would be easier for them to send the kid to London or to Paris or somewhere like that, Germany, instead of coming to the United States, but they don't. They send them here to the United States because nowhere in Europe are they really addressing some of these medical deals, some of these less common medical conditions. So that would become, if we went to a universal healthcare system in the United States, you would probably see the basic health care in terms of primary care. That would probably become a better situation in terms of coverage but over the long term, I think you'll have less people going into the healthcare profession. We're already having a hard time getting enough people in healthcare anyway. You go to universal healthcare, the pay is going to go down. I can guarantee you the salaries of the doctors, yada yada yada, is going to decline, and there's not as much incentive for someone to go through all the years of education that it takes to become a doctor. If you don't have that reward at the end of it, right? Especially if you're paying the student loan bills, that these doctors have. And that leads me to, of course, the tuition, in terms of school. I think that, I think university education has become, it's kind of ridiculous, some of the cost of all this. In most of these universities, you have teachers that are teaching 3 or 4 classes a week, and they have 50 to 100 students in their classes, and it's just a lot of the cost that people are paying for these universities isn't even for the education piece. It's for, oh, we want to build a new football stadium. We want to do that, and it's like, our endowment fund needs to be fattened. I mean, Harvard's sitting there on like 50 billion or something. What was it? 50 billion, 500 billion? I can't remember. It's a lot. Now Harvard's been around since the 1600s. So, it's part of that it's been around so long, but it just kind of seems a little, I don't know. I think our universities need to get back to basic, actual. Another part of our education system that I don't like right now is that these kids go through these classes, but they don't really have any skills to show for it. I think it's more important now than ever for our education system to be built around our children actually learning how to do something, how to do things. We teach them, some facts out of a book, but we don't really apply it. I think it's like we need more applied education where we actually teach kids how to do things. And I think we're kind of lacking in that department in education here in the United States. That would be one of the things that I would change if I had anything to say about it. But anyway, so our education system has problems. Our healthcare system has problems. It's just a matter of how do we go about fixing it. I just don't think that more government control is really the answer. Um, in terms of education, I think parents really should be the ones that I think parents, need to put pressure on the state education system, because a lot of these decisions are not made at the county level. A lot of it's at the state level. Parents need to voice their concerns. They need to put pressure on our school system to be really teaching so that their kids are really learning how to do something. And I think that's a big part of where at least the direction we need to be headed in. I do think a basic education, some learning about the sciences, learning biology and physics and all of that's a good thing. I just don't think that. I think we need to take it a step further and teach kids how to do things. Um, we're going into September. We're already starting to feel the air getting a little cooler here in North Carolina. Looking forward to the fall. I'm hoping this year that we have a real fall, because the last several years it seems like we go from winter to summer and then summer to winter, and then like spring and fall last about a week. you know and it's like, I want a solid 3 months of fall, okay? I mean, I'm talking like September, October, November. It needs to be fall. I don't want to see any like snow in November. No. I'm kind of getting tired of that. These really short springs and falls. So, anyway, I'm gonna be going over to my parents' house here in a bit. These are just some things I had on my mind this morning. You guys all have a great day, and I will be posting another video again soon. Don Palaio checking out.